Well, as we've been discussing this morning, there's more bad news on the economy. The latest IMF report showing an even worse outlook for the year ahead. Joining us now, David Speers, our political editor, who'll be speaking with the Shadow Treasurer, Joe Hockey.
Thanks, Sharon. Joe Hockey, good morning and welcome to the program. What do you make of these latest IMF figures for the global economy, and do you think it means Australia is now headed for recession?
Well, David, there's no surprise in the IMF data. And quite clearly there has been a massive deterioration in the global economy. The trend is disappointingly continuing, but we must always look for opportunities. We must always look for hope, and the fact that Australia went into this downturn in much better shape as a result of the coalition putting in place big reforms and making sure we had no net government debt means that Australia should come out of it quicker and in better shape than anyone else.
But come out of what? Once again, do you think it means we are now heading for recession?
Well, David, the September quarter non-farm GDP last year was negative, and the December quarter was negative. So if we are not in recession today, then for many people it will feel like we are in recession. I mean, this whole technical argument about whether we're in recession, of course we are in a massive economic downturn. If you apply a different definition and say, look, it relates to the massive fall in employment, then Australia is in recession. But whatever the case may be, the fact of the matter is that a lot of Australians are hurting today and that the Rudd government has made it worse than what it should be.
Well, the Rudd government says this IMF report, in fact, backs the stimulus package that it put through. It says governments around the world were right to introduce stimulus of 2% of GDP, which is what the Rudd government did. Does that undermine your opposition to that package?
No, because the Rudd government has introduced a stimulus far greater than 2% of GDP, and Australia has had a far faster easing of monetary policy than almost any other country. So the combined stimulus of government spending together with a massive cut in interest rates, and bear in mind, and this is a very strong argument being put by the European governments very wisely, Australia has a social safety net that America doesn't have. So every day the unemployment numbers tick up, the Australian taxpayers pay money to those people, and that means that there is a further stimulus in the economy.
But Joe Hockey, you are still arguing that the government has spent too much, that it's overstimulating, at a time when the IMF is saying the outlook is getting worse and worse for our trading partners, for the globe and for us.
Well, the government is spending too much money, but not only that, it's spending it badly. How is $3 billion on pink bats going to bring Australia out of a recession? How is $14 billion on school halls going to create jobs in 3 years, 5 years and 10 years? You see, that's the thing, David. It's not money that is well spent. The cash splash themselves are obviously not stimulating jobs. They're going into savings accounts. The data that came out this week indicates that people have been paying off their credit cards rather than using them to stimulate retail spending and to create more jobs. So what the government is doing is making a situation worse, not better, and they're making it harder for Australia to claw out of the economic downturn.
And Joe Hockey, just finally on the Industrial Relations Bill, which this morning is due to go to a vote in the House of Representatives. The Senate has passed an amendment, the coalition siding with the crossbenchers, to change the definition of a small business to 20. The government says it won't budge on its definition of 15. Does this mean that you are prepared to stick with the work choices laws currently in place from the Howard government era?
Work choices died at 2:30 a.m. this morning with a unanimous vote of the Senate. Every party, Labor, Liberal, National, Greens, 2 independents, all unanimously voted to kill work choices at 2:30 this morning.
The House of Reps won't cop that. The government won't pass that, so it didn't die this morning.
Well, if it doesn't, then the government itself is voting to keep work choices. Because if they're coming down, if the whole industrial relations changes, as Senator Xenophon said early this morning, if all the industrial relations changes are put on hold because the government wants to have a technical debate about whether a small business constitutes 15 employees or 20 employees, you can rest assured the government is focused more on the politics of work choices than it is on delivering its own election platform.
Well, they may well say the same about you, Joe Hockey, if you're not prepared to shift on that definition of a small business.
Well, hang on, David. David, if the whole debate is about 0.2 of 1% of the reforms, then explain to me why a government would not accept the unanimous mandate of the Senate and just get on with the job.
Well, not
but
unanimous mandate.
Politics.
You had half the Senate voting against it, the government and the Greens.
Well, no, that was one amendment. Can I tell you, let's talk about mandates for a split second. If you want to talk about a mandate, the coalition government had a mandate to sell Telstra at 3 elections and Labor voted against it. The coalition government had a mandate for massive taxation reform and the Labor Party not only voted against it, but the Senate amended the GST and the coalition accepted that and got on with the job of governing the country. I would say to Labor, stop playing politics and get on with governing the country.
All right, Joe Hockey, we'll have to let you go. Thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
Thank you, David.